Indiana Jones. It's a podcast about Indiana Jones. Every movie, 1 minute at a time. Indiana Jones Minute.
Welcome back to the Indiana Jones Minute. This is the podcast where we stare into the abyss of time as well as into the trunk of a 1950 Ford Deluxe and come face to face with an old friend as well as our own mortality. I'm Pete Mummert.
I'm Tom Taylor.
Yeah, I'm Jerry Porter. Wow, Pete, you took me out on that. Our own mortality.
We knew it was coming.
It's minute 5.
You don't have any middle names? No confirmation names? No baptismal names?
He's busy contemplating his mortality, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, we just finished drinking the chalice of, the cup of Christ. Now we're faced with our own mortality.
There's got to be a patron saint of own mortality. You find it and get back to me.
No, I think that was Jesus.
Oh. You can't be Jesus. You can't be Gerald Jesus. I'm sorry.
Well, that's why I'm just Jerry Porter.
Nobody's buying it.
Nobody. What they are buying is that we have Christy Porter back with us today. Welcome back, Christy.
Hi there.
Hey.
Professor Dr. Christy Porter.
Hair, Dr. Christy.
Yep.
Professor.
Hair, Dr. Christy Porter. Yep.
Hi, guys.
Welcome
Thank
back.
You.
Hey. And today we're going to be talking about minute 5 of Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And I hate saying that title every time.
It's a long one.
Yep. Oh. And minute 5 begins with a well-known fedora being tossed onto the ground.
Sacrilege.
And it ends with Mac betting Indiana Jones a cool William McKinley that they're going to get out of this mess. You know what a William McKinley is, Jer?
No. What's no, isn't that what...
I'm going to use context clues. Can I answer?
You can.
Is it a $500 bill?
It is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh.
They only made him like in the late 20s and early 30s.
Wow.
But I like it that they kind of yank Mac out of the car, and then the next guy we see coming up to the car to the trunk is Herbert Hoover. Following our trail of presidents.
Comrade Hoover.
Hey, what's really weird about this is so neither Mac nor Indy is cuffed. So but when they yank them out, and you can kind of see how they've been sitting in that trunk, it's really weird. Presumably all the way from Mexico-ish, maybe.
Yeah.
So I'm just imagining Mac and Indy in that trunk, but they're not bound, they're not cuffed, and they're just lying kind of on their tum-tums, and they're just sort of sitting there kind of on top of each other a little bit.
Well, I think at some point someone was like, keep your hands off of me. And then they're like, I'm keeping my hands behind my back. Well, I'm keeping my hands behind my back. And then it turns into that.
You can kind of see how they're, flopped in there. And you're like, God, how long have they been there like that? Again, uncuffed, like they could, I don't know. It's just
well, back in the days, you didn't have to cuff people when you put them in the trunk because there was no escape thing. Like safety wasn't a big deal in the 50s.
They don't make trunks like that anymore.
No, they don't.
Yeah, that's true.
They don't. They didn't have
a 5-year-old could pick their way out of a trunk.
That's
Believe me, I know. Cut that, Pete.
Oh, dear. But I would have thought that they would be more rumpled. They weren't rumpled. They should have been rumpled, but they weren't rumpled.
They're fairly rumpled. I don't know.
Indy kind of staggers a little bit for a second.
No, wait a minute. Mac is not rumpled. He's got like that perfect hair swoop. He does.
He's got the scarf on. And
his hair. His hair is like this perfect, beautiful arc. It's like a wave.
But that's not normally how he wears it. It's supposed to be straight back. So that's his rumpled.
Oh, fair enough.
Having the single lock is a giant mess.
Almost like he's got a widow's peak, but not.
Well, so the fedora's thrown violently to the ground, right?
Uh-huh.
And what's interesting is all the soldiers rush up and surround the fedora.
Yes.
And you know what it reminds me of? Yeah, what it reminds me of The first thing that came to my mind was, "Come to Natusa!" Like when like when like the Javitos all lean in, bows drawn, and they surround Indy, and it's a really interesting because they're not. I watched it several times. They're not coming in to like sort of guard Indy or whatever. It's a complete circle, or mostly a circle, all around the hat.
It's weird. It's kind of like
puzzling.
It's kind of like Indy's Hannibal Lecter, though.
What?
Well,
like he's so dangerous, they can't possibly let him out without 20 guys immediately surrounding him with a gun.
See,
they can't let his hat out.
Yeah.
He's that dangerous. Like, you get the impression that they think he's that dangerous. Yeah.
Well, speaking of powerful hat, there's one thing that really, I mean, I was on record, I think mostly Last Crusade, about like, look, the guy with the hat is back. Okay, I get it. He wears a fedora. That's not who he is. Like, twice in this minute, like the hat hits the ground when the guy tosses it out, and we get a slight John Williams, like, it could just be part of the scene, but it seems to me like it's like a note of like slight magical trill. I when you see the hat, and then a second later, when he's about to pick up the hat, there is literally a harp when you're looking at the hat, and I'm like,
it's gorgeous.
You please knock it off?
Oh,
stop it!
No, with you,
it's not a magical hat.
No,
he's not Frosty the Snowman. He wears a hat. He owns a fedora, and he wears it a lot. What's not his identity?
Call you last minute, Christy? What did you call him last minute? A dum dum or a blockhead, or what did you?
Bonehead.
Yeah, noodle nose.
Yeah, bonehead.
Bonehead.
They just keep it coming.
Knucklehead.
Oh my God.
Well, I actually wrote down Magic Hat too, and I think it's a puzzlement why they let him pick up his Magic Hat.
I think that's why they have the guns on him. Don't let him get the hat.
The music is pure like Star Wars mystical magic when you see the hat.
It is.
And it's like, it's just
okay. That works for lightsabers and space wizards, but not earthbound archaeologists.
Like 25 years. This is a wonderful magical moment. And
I'm happy to see Harrison Ford. I like when he puts. I like the moment of him putting the hat on. You see the silhouette. That's all fine, but don't treat the hat like it's. What's the hat gonna do next? And right now it's on the ground, and pretty soon it'll be on the guy's head.
Oh my God!
Wait a minute! I've just been watching this. I gotta say, I mean, I agree that there is a musical note, and I do. I'm with you, Pete, in that I go, God, I like it just. If it was anybody else, I wouldn't. I'd be reacting like Tom. But it's Indiana Jones, and and then when I hear Tom, I go, God, I love Tom when he calls out this jive nonsense. It is. It's a little. It's heavy hat-handed. It is a little
lovely. It's lovely. It's understated. It's a beautiful moment. This is gorgeous.
I don't know.
You are all three wrong.
It's got pixel
Christy,
dust
you didn't say anything, so you might not be wrong. But the other two of you are definitely wrong.
Clearly, those guys.
Well, I get what you're saying.
Everyone will agree with you anyway, Pete. So don't worry about it.
No, it's like let the guy have a hat and let us enjoy the hat. He
also wears the same boots in every movie. You don't get a magical trill with his boots.
What's interesting is they don't do that as much. Like they treat the whip with a certain reverence that's
True.
not heavy-handed or just over the top like the hat is.
Mm-hmm.
But the hat is, like Tom mentioned, lightsabers, and the hat is the equivalent of a lightsaber.
But that's
it is
stupid.
the most recognizable thing about this guy.
That is where I get upset. It's like the hat isn't a magical hat. It's not a magical
the hat's
hat.
Magical. It's magical because it is emblematic of this man we've all loved for decades. And as soon as we see the hat, we know what's coming, and it's just this moment of pure like goosebumps and magic.
How do the soldiers know that it's a magic hat? And they have
this is why he couldn't get out of the trunk the whole time, because he didn't have the hat.
What?
He didn't have his magic powers because he didn't have the hat on.
No, that's
he was just a regular puddle of ice. And then he put the hat back on and became a snowman.
That's you realize, look, Pete, you set all this up. You said we're going to stare at our own mortality, and now we brought up Frosty, and Frosty doesn't have the hat. He melts. He melts.
Oh, boy.
I mean, here's the thing. If you're telling me and you're pulling a Hannibal Lecter card here, I'm going to say that's stupid. I don't like the fact
I think that's
that
stupid too.
Indiana Jones is this like world renowned and everyone knows him, and all of a sudden all the soldiers had to have like a briefing on what this guy was, and don't let him out of your sight. Right. And the second the trunk's open, he's a professor.
No, that is absolutely stupid.
Yeah, it's stupid. And I can't stand that every single place he goes, everybody always knows who he is, no matter what.
At least Cheddar Law was faking it just to mess with him.
Yeah,
I like that.
That's okay because that's kind of a joke, but this makes him like he's turned into a larger than life superhero in this movie. And we see it right from this part, and that's not Indiana Jones to me.
It's not Indiana Jones to me either. I mean, the what's great about Indiana Jones is he's much like how Clark Kent is a mild-mannered reporter. Indiana Jones is a college professor. Now I understand he's a grave robber.
Come on, we're larger than life. Everybody knows it.
And he also everybody underestimates him. That's part of his charm. Is he's always underestimated.
And he wears glasses sometimes.
He's like he's a scallywag. He's a scoundrel. He's a grave robber.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a grave robber. Now I understand in some circles, we said, Archaeologist Monthly or whatever it is, Digger Quarterly. So maybe he writes a few articles, and some people, maybe Chatter Law comes across it or whatever here and there. That's fine. Mm-hmm. But that's what I'm saying. It's I don't want him to be like a mega superhero star.
So I actually had a complete different view of him, and about in this minute, because I was wondering why they were introducing him as completely vulnerable. So that doesn't really fit with what you guys are saying.
Well, Harrison Ford actually asked Spielberg to play that up more than he was going to. Like Harrison Ford wanted him to be old because he wanted to kind of demystify getting old. And he wanted Indy not to be like an action hero, and he wanted him to be like kind of facing his own, like the fact that, hey, I'm getting old and you haven't seen me in 25 years and look at me now.
Yeah.
And I don't think the movie goes with that as much as I wish it did sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do like, though, there's this gorgeous shot from the top down, like you're looking directly down when he gets out of the trunk. Mm-hmm. And there's a line on the pavement, like a diagonal line on the pavement, and the circles or the soldiers are arrayed around it like a circle. And it looks exactly like the doomsday clock that the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist puts out.
God.
Which we're now at 2 minutes to midnight, which is
the
closest we've been since 1953. But I think that's a very nice tie-in to the upcoming scenes. Like, I don't know if that was intentional, but it looks exactly like that famous doomsday clock.
It does.
I actually noticed and thought this was a very interesting choice. So the very first shot we get of Indiana Jones is this, aerial view looking down. And I thought for sure, okay, that's Yahweh's view. And he's here. Like, that's what's going on. And I wondered if that had to do with the fact, like, if this is just like Yahweh's just been hovering about 20 feet over Indy ever since he drank the cup of Christ from last movie.
Oh. Wow.
It's a very interesting...
Is this when he's finally like, you know what? I've kind of had enough of following you.
It's a very interesting choice. The very first shot we get of Indy is this, from 20 feet above. And I can't think of too many other Indiana Jones shots that are like this in any of the movies.
Well, it's either God's point of view or Belloc's point of view when he's in the well of the soul.
That's true. That's right. That's good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But the script calls Indiana Jones a bag of bones being yanked out of the car and slammed down. And it, Jerry, you mentioned a couple of times him drinking from the chalice in Crystal Skull. And should we have been expecting Indy to be young here? Like, is it weird that we see him and he's an old man?
Well, didn't we decide that he's not immortal because the thing didn't cross the seal? And
we did, but it's still like you wonder if there are some effects that are, I don't know. I think, is it just also shocking to see him as an old man as a moviegoer? Like, you think of Indiana Jones, you think of Indiana Jones in his 40s, and all of a sudden there's this old man standing here, and it's like, wow.
Well, I actually think they kind of rib that or highlight that a little bit when Max says a little bit later in this minute. He says, like, I think he says, I'm still young.
Right.
And he's saying, and that's the point. You're like, oh yeah, Indy's old. Like, we're all young, but Indy's old.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, I'm still young, but yeah, Indy's old. But...
It is interesting. They don't. I mean, I've it's been a while since I watched the whole movie, but I don't remember them doing much. Maybe with a little bit of his performance, Harrison Ford's performance. But they don't. There's not like a lot in the movie, like in the text of the movie, about him being old. And I think that's. I keep thinking about Kirk in Star Trek 2. That's like a theme. It's like, okay, let's face the fact these are characters from like a 60s TV show. It's like decades since we've seen them. Kirk's old. He's got glasses. He's feeling old. He's got a son he didn't know about. Like it's like a theme of the movie and like rebirth and everything and life. And they could have done something like that. I want to see Indy with reading glasses or something. I want to see him. I wrestle with stuff a little bit like that.
I wonder if that's because we're old now. Like when we were young, we probably wouldn't have wanted to see that. But now that we're facing our own mortality or, we're aging, it's kind of like, I want to see what my hero looks like aging.
Maybe.
Is this to keep up with the growing up generation? Is that what this is about?
I think it's mostly because Harrison Ford's an old man. He's like 60 something.
I know, but when I watched this and I saw him, I did not think of Indiana Jones being old at all. I thought of Harrison Ford being old. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like I wasn't fully engaged with the character, I guess. I didn't think about it except for hearing you guys talk about it. I'm like, oh yeah, there's Harrison Ford, the way he kind of looks, recently.
Yeah. You know what? That's a really good point, because there's a lot of that going. I kind of got that a little bit with Han Solo in The Force Awakens. There's like sort of you're like, okay, I get that Harrison Ford went from the guy from Star Wars to this guy. But does that mean that Han Solo necessarily would have been that same guy? Like, would he age exactly the same way as Harrison Ford? Because I think Harrison Ford has a touch of, it's not nearly as bad, but a touch of like the Al Pacino thing, where he was a much, much different guy as a younger actor. Yeah. Like Godfather and Dog Day Afternoon and stuff. And then like somewhere around Scarface or something, like in the 80s, he kind of became like, hoo-ha kind of Al Pacino. And I think Harrison Ford's got a touch of that, where he's just kind of like grumpy old man Harrison Ford. He is,
now. Especially like with Blade Runner.
Yeah.
He was literally just grumpy old Harrison Ford.
Yeah, there's not like I didn't for a second think that was Rick Deckard in that movie.
Yeah.
And I don't have that struggle with Indiana Jones in this movie. I feel like I'm watching Indiana Jones, but it does feel like a weird jump from like a different kind of Indiana Jones to this one.
But isn't that sort of like in when Harrison Ford said, "I'll do the next Star Wars movie," what was it, The Force Awakens? And he's like, but I'm gonna, like, Han Solo's gonna die. I'm only gonna do it if he dies. And they're like, no, how about he'll die in the next one? He's like, no, he has to die in this one. I wonder if has little caveats where he's like, I'm only going to do an Indiana Jones movie if we don't try, if we embrace the fact that I've aged and I'm older and considerably older, and then maybe that's why they highlight some of this and why.
No, he literally said that. That's literally exactly what he said to Steven
Spielberg. So some of that is that's just Harrison Ford, the guy, saying, I'm only going to do these characters, revise these characters, revisit them and continue if we're serious about this and not goofy and stupid like 72-year-old Roger Moore in a slugfest against like a 350-pound guy.
Yeah.
I like Roger Moore, and I like him in that character, and I never had a problem with that.
They to their credit, to the writers and everybody, they don't stick Indiana Jones with like a 20 or 30 something femme fatale or girlfriend or cutesy poo or anything.
I agree. That's
they don't
great.
come close to that.
Yeah,
no Susie Cute Skirt.
No Susie Cute Skirt this time.
Yep.
Are you still young, Tommy?
Yeah, I think so, until I see pictures of myself from 10 or 20 years ago.
Like in those shorts.
Oh,
yeah, that's
funny. Are you in those shorts? Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh. Some calves over there. Ooh.
Pete, do you still feel young? Do you still feel young, Pete?
Like I don't even feel like an adult yet.
Yeah. I'm young on the inside.
Well, wait a minute. So what are you like? You're like not an adult, man, but you're not. You're not.
Yeah, I'm like an old man child.
You're like Benjamin Buttons.
No, an old man child. I like that.
I'm an old man child too.
How about you? How about the Porters?
I mean, it comes as no surprise that I think I'm 15 and I act like I'm 15. But it's like I just got to go to college a little bit early. You're like I get to order pizza at 3 a.m.
I'm going to do it for the next 30 years.
That's exactly what happened. And the best part about living like that is there aren't any tests. You don't have to take any tests anymore.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe your driving test, and I got to get glasses to pass that. So I guess I'm old.
I seem to be older than I think I am, which is weird. Might be
that seems to be a common feeling.
Yeah.
Thanks for your understanding, guys. You guys get me.
And this moment when Indy stands up in shadow, like you just see his shadow against the car, and he puts the hat on, and you hear the Raiders march. And that silhouette has to be one of the 3 or 4 most iconic silhouettes of all time. Like as soon as you see that silhouette, it's again, like I know Tom probably hates it. And
no, I love this.
But it's
I love the
magical moment. Yeah.
I think that moment is awesome. I wish they hadn't wiped their noses with it with the harp. With the hat.
they use the Queen's doily to wipe their nose with the silly harp trill. Well, and when you look at it, it is it's kind of got a nice Western feel to it, even though it's not completely. But it does have that kind of American cowboy thing. And then if you look all the colors, and it takes place in the West, and he puts on the hat, and it's actually against a big star. That's on the car, and it's really well shot. And I was gonna say, if there's anybody else, I'd be like, oh come on, but man, Indiana Jones, I let him get away with so much just because I like this scene.
Yeah,
and I did. They even I even kind of did one of those. When I saw the hat for the first time,
That's right.
There it is.
They do sort of. They've been consistent with that in all the movies. That they kind of nail his first, entrance.
Yeah.
His sort of hero shot at the beginning in each one.
Well, right
definitely.
before we get to see a nice close up on Indy in this minute, we do have some of that funny language. which
funny language, you said.
Funny language, which is not English to me. Yeah, it's funny talk, isn't that what Homer Simpson calls it?
Oh, they're talking funny talk.
Oh, he's talking funny Simpson. Talk.
Yeah.
So, I actually, I paid a visit to my good friend, George the Russian, who, if you live in if you live in L.A. and you need to get any deals done, you better call George the Russian. And he helped me
It sounds ominous.
Really?
It does.
He helped me decipher this gobbledygook. And I'm gonna give it my best shot here. Let me see.
Does he actually speak Russian, or do people just think he does because his last name is the Russian?
No.
And why would his parents name him that?
He'd be in big trouble if he didn't speak Russian.
Guys.
Yeah, that's just my surname. So all right, I'm going to do my best here. Let me see if I can see. Here's what is spoken in this minute.
Engineer, open the gate. Go. Do it.
Did you guys like that? That sound Russian?
That was good. That
was good.
Yeah.
It's very good. You sounded just like George the Russian.
I sounded just like George the Russian.
I must get confused for him all the time.
Yeah. Oh.
Yes.
That's actually shocking because I thought if you go to second 31, not the guy who gets out of the car who looks like Martin Short, but the guy behind him with the gun, he comes out and he clearly says at second 31, lightsaber.
What?
Oh, wow. Really?
He says something about a lightsaber. He says lightsaber. Yeah. To my ears, he does anyway.
By the way, that's you're talking about the first guy that get the Martin Short guy is Roosevelt. And we don't know if it's Teddy or Franklin.
We don't know if it's Teddy or Franklin.
And
nice.
The second guy, the guy that says lightsaber is Ulysses S. Grant.
Oh, my word.
Nice.
I went back and hear it. He does kind of say lightsaber.
Yeah.
But apparently it's engineer, open the gate, go, do it quickly. something along those lines.
Again,
Yes.
I'm fascinated that they actually put actual words in another language in this movie.
Well, they used actual Russians for most of these parts in this movie for a
cool.
change. So yeah, these guys actually all spoke Russian. So
I defect.
So So the very first line here, speaking of Russians, the very first line we hear Indy speak in 20 years is Russians. So do we, Tommy? You're my moral compass. Do you like that?
I
Do you
thought
like
Pete was your moral compass.
No, Pete's just my friend.
Oh, okay.
When I'm immoral, I call Pete.
Yeah, right.
It's more of his barometer.
Yeah. Altimeter.
No, what do you like the fact that he turns around and is Russians? Because you felt a little clubbed over the head with the flag and with the hat. So is this
Russians is it's okay. It's I think we get it by now that these are Russians. So it's a little bit like, thanks, Indy. Oh, you're a professor, huh? Yeah,
but I mean, did he really not know?
Mr.
Like,
Brainiac
how long
over
has
here.
he been in the car? They had no idea.
That's a really good point too. He must have heard stuff in the car, like from the trunk.
Well,
in
the
talking
book,
about
he sees
caviar
who
and
they
vodka
are.
and stuff, and
Like in the book, they grab him in Mexico. They grab him in Mac, so he knows who it is.
do you think he literally? Do you think he had to say Russians because people were going to see Indiana Jones surrounded by, fatigue guys, fatigue laden guys, and wait, they're not Nazis. Wait a minute.
Yeah, right. And it's going to be kids who are watching too, and people not paying attention and such.
Yeah.
Yeah, are these like Czech separatists or Hungarians or something?
Czech separatists.
I mean, that wouldn't sound very good if that's his first line. Czech separatists. No, it just doesn't carry the same.
It'd be like a prequel line.
So you're fine with it, Pete?
Yeah, I don't know if I like it as a first line, and I think the Russian stuff here in these couple of minutes is kind of feels a little Yakov Smirnoff to me.
A little bit.
Like, in Soviet Russia, Indiana Jones minute listens you. Sorry, that was terrible.
That was terrible. Truly terrible. But thank you.
Would it be better? Would the Russians line be better? I'm half serious. If he said Russians, I hate these guys.
No, you would hate that, Tom.
You would be livid if he did that.
I would
Tom.
hate that. I retract
What
that.
are you doing?
You would,
I ran it up the flagpole and I did not salute.
Yeah.
It's just like that American flag. That would make you apoplectic, like the running up
Pete's
that up the
now my
flagpole.
moral compass. Russians, I hate these guys. No, but I mean,
I pose it as a question.
It does anchor us though that we've moved on and we're now no longer in World War II.
I fully expected him to say it though. I did, because we've got so many. We're cramming so many things that we've seen before or heard before or whatever it is. So why not say it? And then we would have to wonder, why does he hate these guys? What is it? Why does he hate them? Maybe because they stuffed him in trunk in Mexico and drove him to Nevada.
Yeah. Or Max says something like, how many years has it been since Sputnik? 2? Maybe 3? I don't know.
I hate him anyway.
Well, what's interesting is, Indy doesn't have his hands up and Mac does. And what's fascinating, if you look at Indy's, is he striking a pose of protest and defiance, or dignity? Or is he just like, I'm old now, I don't care?
That's kind of what it feels like. It's sort of like, well, if I put my hands up or not, they're still going to be pointing guns at me.
Yeah.
I've been through this rodeo
He
before.
does just seem irritated. It's true.
But he's kind of rascally and surly in the other movies too. I think he's just like the surly professor.
Yeah.
I beg your pardon?
Well,
unlike the lovely Christy Porter,
go.
who's never anything but.
So, am I the
delightful.
only person who thinks that the first scene with Indiana Jones is vulnerable?
No, I see him as vulnerable.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, they throw his hat down. They throw his hat down. They bring a bag of bones out of the trunk. Although he doesn't. What's interesting is he doesn't entirely seem vulnerable. If you watch the way that he picks his hat up, he kind of strides over next to it and he kind of scoops it, and he's.
But it's kind of because he's too old to
That's
his
true.
knees aren't going to bend down.
But he doesn't. But right now, he kind of he's not at all frightened or scared. I mean, he may be vulnerable, just like
He's trapped. He's trapped.
but he doesn't seem to
be
trained
on him. He doesn't have his hat.
That's a good point, though, Jerry. He's not scared. He doesn't seem at all scared.
And we've seen him in other scenes where he's maybe planning or he's mechanizing or whatever. He's like, how the hell am I going to get out of here? But he's not doing any of that. As a matter of fact, he says to Mac, he goes, put your hands down. You're embarrassing us. You know, he's
got the air of a guy who's just been through this a million times and he knows how it goes. And he's just sort of like, okay, they've got guns. I'm at their mercy. Well, what happens next? We'll just see.
Right.
I'll probably get out of this. Not because I'm an Indiana Jones with a magic hat, but just because, it's worked out before.
It's worked out before. Well, phew.
Yep. And speaking of mechanizing, we've got Mac here, like saying that they've been through worse. Like kind of.
I was going to ask you, Pete, what do you think of this buddy back and forth business? Yeah, I bet you $500 we get out of here, and I thought to myself, okay, so here we see Indy. We're seeing him at the very beginning. He's got a buddy with him. He's been involved in there's some sort of shenanigans once again. And I thought, okay, it's like the beginning of Temple of Doom. Where you see Indy in Wuhan. And now this is kind of later in life. Mac is another Wuhan character, and they have a history. And
that's a great analogy because Mac doesn't feel like they have this kind of easy banter, and I don't feel like we ever get that relationship between Indy and Mac in this movie. Like I never feel like they're actually friends that would warrant this conversation. Like there just doesn't feel to me like there's a lot of depth in Mac. So when they have this kind of banter. Like it feels like that works with Indy in the other movies when he's talking to certain people, but I don't feel like it really works with Mac.
I completely agree. I actually don't think that they have much of a relationship. I don't buy it here. I
buy it here, but then you're right, Pete. Like the rest of the movie doesn't bear it out. And it's partly the nature of his character, I guess, and what happens with him and stuff. Like they're not together a lot of the time, and they're at odds and stuff. Not to give anything away, but they don't have that much of a chance to be buddies and pals, I guess. But I don't know. I feel like right here, there's like, in my head, I'm comparing it to Attack of the Clones, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin on the elevator the first time you see them in the movie. And they have a scene exactly like this where they're like, oh, remember that pit of Gundarks? Oh, we've had a lot of adventures.
Exactly. That's perfect. Yeah.
But I feel like this, and not just in comparison to that, but I feel like this works better. I feel like there's a little more personality, a little more connection, a little more charm to their back and forth. I buy a little bit more that they've been through a lot of scrapes together and that they're pals.
It's fascinating because here on minute 5, I agree. I buy this. This might be one of their best scenes in the movie. It's not. I'm not saying. I mean, for them, it kind of works a little bit, and for some reason, I buy the little back and forth stuff a bit. And what's interesting is actually Max says, "I bet you $500 we get out of here," and he gives Indy a little goose. He gives him. Yeah. So it's probably a long ride in the trunk, but it's kind of it's. For some reason, I actually like Mac here, and I think it's kind of funny. And I like that little $500, goosing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the one line I do like is Max says we've been through worse, or after Indy says it's not as easy as it used to be, and Max says we've been through worse, and Indy says, "Oh yeah, when?" And Max says Flensburg, there were twice as many. And I like that he mentions Flensburg because that was where the Nazi U-boat pins were. And it was over Flensburg that Denham Elliott was shot down during World War II.
Oh, my God. Wow. That's awesome.
So that's kind of a neat little tie-in.
That is cool.
Pete, you just know everything.
Nice. I had a feeling Pete would have something for Flensburg.
So does anybody, why does he say he's embarrassed? What's he trying to convey there? Is he trying to just get Matt to be quiet or to pull himself together? Or because Mac doesn't look that upset. He looks kind of going back and forth. So what's he trying to convey?
Maybe Indy's like, don't give him the satisfaction of putting your arms up or something.
Yeah, I think
it's like,
I think he's doing the don't give him the satisfaction because he's really, as we see in a scene or a minute, or two, he really doesn't like these Russians, and he's just sort of indignant and all that. But what I think the other thing is it shows is they're trying to telegraph to us that his character now is just like he's exactly I've seen all this before. I'm you're embarrassing me. Like, this isn't the way this goes. You don't have to put your hands up. It's just like he's I guess, what's the word? Is it wizened? And maybe with a couple dollops of grizzled.
Sure.
It's interesting, though, that he says you're embarrassing us, because that's the exact same thing he says to Willie Scott in Temple of Doom.
That's true. He just wants to be a good representative in front of all nationalities.
Mac is my Willie Scott. Well, there's a lot of people don't like Willie Scott.
Oh.
That's my Mac.
Huh.
Well, you didn't like Willie at the beginning of Temple of Doom, Pete, and you sort of came through thinking.
I ended up loving Willie. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so we'll see.
God, you're a weird man.
Thank you for being Mr. Positive.
Come on, Pete, you just gotta just enjoy them. Movies are magical. All they want to do is entertain you, and you're just sitting there picking them apart.
Yeah,
what's the matter with
we're
you?
on the fourth one of these, and you're just a boat anchor of negativity.
That's not right. That's not right at all. He just gave you Flintsburg. Come on.
We'll always say Flinsburg.
Thank you, Christy.
Like that tiny suburb in Michigan, Flintsburg.
Well, now that we've had
Yes,
Flintsburg, anybody have anything else for?
Why, yes, something is coming through the wire, rattling a big one.
What could it be?
Oh,
ho ho ho!
Boop-a-da-boop.
Yes, yes. Boop-a-da-doop, boop, 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 boop. Coming in. This just in, hot off the, I guess, the wire. From the pig who built her home out of bricks. That's lawyer money there. Mimi Porter Esquire. Does anyone know? Oh, okay. Not allowed to answer this one, Doris. Does anyone know what the town of Flensburg is famous for?
Oh, Pete does.
Well, I didn't.
Well, I'm looking at the answer here. Pete has some of it, but he doesn't have all of it. Yes, it's known for a large erotic mail order company.
Oh,
yes.
good Lord.
Hey.
Bitte Unsa.
I didn't want to just blurt that out because it would have been kind of revealing.
Yeah.
And, oh, that Flinsburg.
Oh, that Flinsburg. Yeah,
That
I guess it's
Flinsburg,
Bitte
yeah.
Unsa. However you say it, I don't know. Oh, actually, there is another little boop, boop, boop coming in. Flensburg.
Burp.
Pete, I'm
Okay.
surprised this went past you. Flensburg was the seat of the last government of Nazi Germany, the so-called Flensburg government, which was in power from May 1st, the announcement of Hitler's death for 1 week until German armies surrendered and the town was occupied by Allied troops. The regime was officially dissolved on May 23rd. So actually, that's very interesting.
It was Admiral Dönitz, right?
Yeah. Is he actually? It is. That's absolutely right. So I think that what they're talking about here, when he says not since Flensburg, they were surrounded by Russians. I guess exactly after Hitler's death in World War II. That's what they're talking about. They're
saying that Indy is the one who killed Hitler.
Yeah, they are. They're saying Indy is the one who killed.
Well.
So wait a minute. Just.
No, I didn't make that connection. That's really nice. Actually,
That's interesting.
It could have been.
Reading that.
Yeah,
so
the
that's,
last days of the
it's
Third
last
Reich.
days of the Third Reich. Mac and Indy were right there in Flensburg, which was the seat of the last government of Nazi Germany, and that would it might explain why they'd be surrounded by Russians too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, that's good.
Wow. Well, now I can sleep tonight, knowing all of that. Thanks for drawing all the and connecting all the dots, and the part about the mail order erotica. Woo! Bonus.
Yeah.
What was that address again? Just want to research it a little bit.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to Minute 5. And please join us on Facebook. We've got a rollicking good time Facebook group called Indiana Jones Minute and the Listener's Crusade. Did I get that right,
You
Tom?
did. I'm so proud of you. That was awesome.
Hey, I never get that right. I got it right. So come join us there because there are lots of people there, and they're going to be telling us all the things we got wrong in this minute, and they're also going to have lots of really hilarious things to say, and it's a lot of fun.
They're going to call me a bonehead and stuff because I don't like the hat.
I hope so. Yeah, please come and call Tom a bonehead.
Yeah.
And we all have a lot of fun doing that kind of thing. And then please join us again here Friday for minute 6 of Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull here on the Indiana Jones Minute.
Jones?
Jonesy!